Thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having us.
Doug Gresham says it's a poorer story that makes a better film. Why is that?
It's one of those things, I think, when you're faced with greater challenges, you have to come up with greater solutions. And definitely, certainly structurally, the story was a little weaker. It didn't have quite the same drive to it, or the straight-through cinematic line that Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe had. And it didn't have that sort of epic, symbolic levels of good and evil. But consequently, all of those things, I think, challenged us to come up with some interesting solutions, and it sort of deviates structurally a lot more from the book. But I think it is, because of that, a more exciting film.
Yeah. Apart from taking the time off with the family, is there any point during the whole process of Caspian where you thought, I wish I'd said yes to directing the next one?
Yeah, there is, and there still is, letting go is a hard thing. And Dawn Treader was also one of my favorite stories. Yeah. So there was definitely aspects of that. There was a time when I thought, well, should I just jump to Dawn Treader and skip Prince Caspian, or should I combine them, or that kind of thing? But in actual fact, part of the process, and I've been through this a few times with films, and certainly on Shrek 2, I think I really went through this. Part of the process of trying to make it work gets you emotionally attached, and you end up making something you love. So now, and actually when I went back and reread Prince Caspian, I enjoyed it in a whole way that I didn't used to. So it's kind of, I've become much more emotionally attached to this film.
Yeah, actually one of the ladies at work that saw the movie hadn't read the books.
Right.
So it was a little non sequitur for her. She said, I had to go and read the book to find out what parts of the movie were about. So we're definitely talking sequels, aren't we? It's not a standalone movie.
Well, I've had both, actually. I've had people who have seen it as a standalone film who've never read any of the books, who have had no problems with it, but have certainly said they want to go back and see the other one, because there's certain mythology we tap into. And I do think of the Narnia series as a greater mythology, of which we're telling sort of segments of stories out of that mythology, because the one character throughout them all is Aslan. He's the only character that goes throughout them all. But there are certain assumptions made. I expect the audience to have some sense of who Aslan is. I expect the audience to have some understanding of the stone table being a significant place. They don't necessarily have to know what happened there, but to get the full emotional impact, they have to know it was somehow significant. But the feedback I've been getting is that people have picked up on that, but it's actually made them want to go and learn more about it, which I think is great.
I'm not quite sure who would answer this. Is there an order for the movies being made? Because obviously Dawn Treader comes next, Silverchair comes after that, but you've got Horse and His Boy before that, and Magician's Nephew.
Once we made the decision to make Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe first, we were locked into Prince Caspian because we had cast the 4 Pevensies. And if we hadn't done that then, we wouldn't have been able to do it with the same cast. And then once we did Prince Caspian, then it became clear, because of the 2 younger Pevensey children, that we had to do The Voyage of the Dawn Treader next. And then somewhat after that, where we do have Eustace in Silverchair after that. After that point, we can pick and choose a bit.
Yeah, and then it's a question of do you do Horse and His Boy and have a little side story, because the kids would be actually the right age to play the older Pevensies in that. Or do you go back and do something like The Magician's Nephew, which is a really wonderful mystical prequel? Yeah.
And for many of us, it's our favorite.
It's one of my favorites. Yeah.
Are you in for all of them?
I can't imagine letting go entirely. So, but can I just maybe?
Hold on, I just have to call just.
Just give Walter a call on that one.
Yeah.
You've developed the children's characters a lot more in Caspian than in the Wardrobe, but Lewis didn't really do that until Dawn Treader. He didn't really start developing characterizations in that. So how hard was that to actually figure what they'd be?
It wasn't that hard. I tried to, as with everything, draw from the book. And an example I had last time was that in C.S. Lewis's book, Edmund was just kind of a bad boy, and I wanted to explain a bit more about why he was a bad boy, and kind of embellished a little bit and expanded it to be the story about his father being away, and how his older brother had stepped into that paternal role, and how he resented that, and that sort of created this reason that he went to the White Witch and sort of turned his back on his family. So in this story, I want to do the same thing, is to look at what the kids did in the story, and then treat it as if they were real kids. And the philosophy I always applied to it was as if this was a real story that C.S. Lewis had written a book for children about, and I was making a movie of the real story, so it would have a little bit more of that character depth. Yeah.
Because it comes out, Peter, for instance, in front of the castle gates when the gate comes down. I mean, that's a brilliant scene.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, it's a moment that still gets me. It's an emotional moment. It's there's a really strong thing in here about You know, obviously there's a lot of war in this film, and there's a really strong message about why you're fighting. And Peter initially is doing it for kudos and ego. Caspian is initially doing it for revenge. And when they ultimately only win when they're fighting for the right reasons.
Mm. Now, Andrew, you've appeared a little reticent in the past to talk about the Christian aspect of your upbringing.
No, not really reticent. I don't think it's a really important thing to talk about. It's also something that's very personal. Mm. You know, I think religion and spirituality is a personal issue, and I also have a thing about, you know, bringing my family into publicity. It's like, this is something I've chosen to do. This is part of what I do, but they haven't necessarily made that choice. So I tend to try and leave them out of it as much as I can. Were
there aspects, though, in both Wardrobe and Caspian where a memory?
Well, the main thing I found is having that sort of background and upbringing really gave me an understanding of the theology. And in the discussions that I've been having, and certainly with Doug, at least I was coming at it from a point of knowledge and a point of understanding, which I think has been really helpful in being sensitive to all of the issues that are in the book, because some of them are quite subtle, and some of them are more mythological than they are necessarily religious. But in each case, there's something that had been important to C.S. Lewis, and I've been very appreciative of having that background to be able to at least ask the right questions, even if I don't know the right answers.
There is, though, from a Disney aspect, in the Gospel According to Walt Disney by Mark Pinksy, he says that Walt Disney didn't want to promote any particular religion over another one, and the Narnia Chronicles would kind of...
See, I would disagree with that, really, in that, or not with that Walt Disney may have made that statement, but that the Narnia Chronicles is promoting any particular religion over any other. One of the things that we've seen is this was one of the biggest hits, I think, if not the biggest hit ever in Malaysia. And that's not, you know, Malaysia is primarily... exactly.
That's Lion the Witch.
Lion the Witch and the Wardrobe. And I think one of the reasons is that the stories, because C.S. Lewis was first and foremost a mythologist, and he said for him that Christianity was a true myth. But he operated from this point of mythology. And because of that, I think he was dealing with a lot of different stories, some thousands of years old, that deal with very true human conditions, and he's tapping into conditions that are as true to us today as they were then. And I think that's one of the reasons it's actually reached across cultures. The books have been read in, I think, 27 different languages across the world, different cultures, by young kids who don't even know what the word allegory means. So I think, you know, first and foremost they're good stories, and then they're stories that different people can take different things from.
And good movies.
Oh, thank you very much.
What was it like? I want to know, what was it like directing Sergio Castellitto? Because he comes across to me as a man that would definitely know how he would play the scene.
You know, he is a very collaborative person, and you know, he is a director as well. So it's really nice to work with any good actor, but to work with an actor who's directed, who you can learn from. And there were times when he'd say, Andrew, I'm doing something in this scene that you might want to, you know, come closer. And it was great. But no, he's a wonderful, wonderful man.
Yeah. And hard to say goodbye to Peter and Susan?
Yeah, well, for me, it's a goodbye anyway.
Right. We've talked to people who have seen the ending. In fact, we did one test in California, and everybody was asked what they thought of the ending of the film, and they liked it a great deal, but it made them sad. And we said, well, why is that? Why is that? And they were so unhappy. These are people who weren't prepared for the fact that Peter and Susan couldn't come back, and it was quite an emotional moment, and still is for much of the audience.
And for us shooting it, that was one of the scenes that none of us had trouble tapping into the emotions. You know, but for Anna and William and I, the fact that we were saying goodbye in the film made it really easy to find those emotions.
Luckily, it wasn't their last scene, or it really would have been
exactly
devastating. Do know that Andrew is a producer on the next one, and will be on. So it's not like he's completely letting go. That's right.
So get that on paper somewhere.
No, I will definitely stay involved in the same way I have with the Shrek films. I think once you've sort of birthed something like this, it's hard to let it go and grow up, and you kind of have to still be there and help it along.
All right, gentlemen, thanks for your time.
Thank you very much. Good to talk to you.
We enjoyed it. Thanks.